The stars hung like frozen sparks across the velvet black of space. The UES Valiant cut through the dark, a sleek silver warship humming with quiet power. It was Earth's crown jewel, part battleship, part diplomatic palace. And now it approached the uncharted edge of the Zelneri Empire. Inside the command deck, lights glowed soft blue, reflecting off polished metal and transparent panels. Crew members moved with tense precision, eyes locked on displays and readouts. At the center of it all stood Superman. He wasn't wearing a cape. He didn't need one. Tall, broad-shouldered, and steady as stone, Captain Elias Drake, known across Earth and its colonies by the nickname Superman, watched the alien ship ahead. His uniform, dark gray with the Earth Unity crest at his chest, clung to his frame like it was afraid to let go. His jaw was tight. His hands stayed relaxed. But his eyes, always scanning, always thinking. "Zelneri vessel is holding position," said Commander Ashera, a lithe woman with silver implants along her neck. "No weapons charged. Signal coming in. Visual." Superman gave a small nod. On screen, the display flared to life. And there she was, a tall, elegant alien with sapphire skin and bioluminescent patterns tracing down her arms. Eyes like galaxies, swirling and depthless. She was unmistakable. Clone V, the Queen's diplomatic double, cloned to perfection, trained to be the voice of royalty without risking the throne. "Captain Drake," she said in smooth, measured tones, "on behalf of Her Majesty Queen Virexa, welcome to Zelneri space. You honor us with your presence." Superman smiled faintly. "And you honor us with peace." She tilted her head. "There is more than peace to discuss." Something shifted in her expression. For a moment, it wasn't diplomacy, it was personal. "There is a child." The silence hit the deck like gravity gone wrong. Superman blinked. "A child." Her glowing eyes did not blink. "I am carrying your offspring." Gasps rose across the bridge. Ashera's hand froze above her console. A technician dropped his stylus. Even the ship's AI stuttered in its voice loop. Superman didn't move, didn't flinch. "That's not possible," he said slowly. "We met once, at the embassy. We never." Clone V stepped closer to the screen. It was not physical in the way humans think. The Zelneri possess advanced biogenetic bonding techniques. Our DNA can harmonize through psychic resonance. The Queen approved the procedure. You were unaware. Superman's breath left him like he'd taken a punch to the gut. His voice dropped. "Why?" "Because peace," she said, needed more than words. Behind him, the bridge erupted into low murmurs. Earth Command would want blood. The Senate would call it manipulation. The news feeds would go insane. And the Queen? What was her play? Superman turned to Ashera. "Send this to Command. Full encryption." Then he looked back at the screen. At her. At the future shifting under his feet. "You say this was for peace," he said. "But peace built on lies never lasts." Clone V's voice softened. "It was not a lie, Captain. It was hope." The screen faded to black. In the silence that followed, the stars outside shimmered. And deep within the ship, something new stirred. Something growing. Something hybrid. Superman stood there, a man between worlds, between species, between futures. And he knew this was only the beginning. The fallout was immediate. Within hours of Clone V's announcement, every major media outlet across the core worlds was running the story. Headlines screamed across the galaxy. Superman impregnates alien queen's clone. Conspiracy theories exploded. Peace treaties shuddered. The Earth Unity Council locked down their chambers in emergency session. But none of that noise reached the quiet storm raging inside Superman's mind. He stood alone in his private quarters aboard the Valiant. The stars beyond the window no longer looked beautiful. They looked like 1,000 eyes watching him, judging him, waiting. The room was dim, lit only by a single lamp near the desk. On it sat a datapad, still glowing with the message from Earth Command. Return to Sol. Effective immediately. Captain Drake is to be placed under diplomatic hold until further notice. He stared at the message, then at the reflection in the window. The man who looked back wasn't the hero from Earth's posters. He was just Elias Drake now, a soldier caught in someone else's game. The door chimed. "Enter," he said. Commander Ashera stepped in, her face unreadable. She held a fresh report in her hand. "You should see this." Superman took the pad. The screen lit up with a single phrase. "Direct transmission from Queen Virexa. For Captain Drake only." He tapped it. The room dimmed, and a hologram shimmered into being. Queen Virexa stood tall, robed in flowing silver and violet. Her voice was smooth, low, and absolutely controlled. "Captain Drake," she said, "I will not waste time with formalities. You have interfered with matters beyond your understanding. Clone V was authorized to carry our legacy, but you were never meant to become essential." She stepped closer, her image flickering with regal intensity. "I have questions and demands. You will come to me, not as an ambassador, not as a soldier, but as the father of what may be the next evolution of two species." The hologram faded before Superman could speak. Ashera folded her arms. "She's not asking. She's summoning you." Superman looked down at his hands. They were steady, too steady. "So I'm not going home," he said quietly. "No, sir," Ashera replied. "You're going to the heart of the Empire. Alone." Hours later, the Valiant's shuttle bay hissed open. A small diplomatic cruiser, smooth and alien in design, hovered like a silver insect. A single Zelneri escort stepped forward, tall, armored, silent. Superman walked toward it with slow, measured steps. The crew watched from the shadows. No one spoke, no one saluted. He paused at the ramp and looked back once. "Hold the line," he said. Ashera gave a slow nod. "Always." Then he entered the cruiser, and the doors sealed behind him with a final hiss. Beyond the stars, the Queen waited. In the deepest chamber of her palace, surrounded by ancient symbols and psionic light, Queen Virexa watched the shuttle approach. Her expression was calm, but behind her eyes, a storm churned. This human had changed the game. And now, she wanted to see just how dangerous he truly was. The shuttle's descent was slow, deliberate, as though the very air of Zelneri space knew something the pilot did not. Superman sat motionless, hands folded across his lap, staring out through the small viewport as the landscape of Zelneri's capital world came into view. It was a sprawling metropolis, shimmering under twin suns, architecture that seemed to rise organically from the ground itself, shaped by millennia of alien artistry and ancient technology. The shuttle touched down in silence, its thrusters cutting out just as the doors hissed open. A cold breeze rushed in, tinged with the faint smell of ozone, and something floral, something distinctly alien. A row of Zelneri honor guards, their crystalline armor catching the light in strange angles, awaited him in absolute stillness. Superman exhaled, his breath steady but sharp. He'd faced countless threats in his career, from cosmic horrors to military coups. But this was different. There was a weight to the air here, a gravity that wasn't just physical. It pressed in on him, a reminder that he wasn't just a visitor in someone else's house. He was now part of something much bigger. A voice broke the tension before he could step off the shuttle. "Captain Drake." The voice was soft, unmistakably regal, yet it carried a power that made Superman stop. The Queen stood before him, taller than he had expected, a towering figure of pale blue skin and intricate silver markings tracing down her neck and arms. Her eyes, vast and endless, held a galaxy of secrets. She was the real Virexa, the ruler of an empire, the heart of a race that could obliterate worlds with a thought. And yet, her gaze was steady, calculating. Superman met her eyes with his own steady gaze. He had faced down many leaders, but this was different. The room seemed to dim when she spoke again. "Come," she said simply, turning on her heel, her flowing gown trailing behind her like liquid starlight. "You will walk with me." He followed her through the grand hall, the sound of their footsteps echoing off the smooth marble-like floors. Zelneri architecture was all sharp lines and flowing curves, alien in its design but oddly beautiful. It felt ancient, eternal. The Queen's voice broke the silence once more. "The child your clone carries is not just a symbol, Captain. It is the future of both our peoples. There are things we must discuss, matters of power and legacy." Superman stayed quiet. He had no interest in hearing her grand speeches or empty promises. He wasn't here to play her game. They arrived at a chamber large enough to house a fleet of warships. At least it felt that way. The walls were adorned with alien murals, stories told in colors that defied human understanding. In the center, a large, transparent pool of liquid shimmered with a soft blue glow. Varexa stopped at the edge of the pool, her silhouette reflecting in its depths. She turned to him. "I do not seek an alliance for the sake of peace, Captain. Not anymore. You have brought a new element into the equation, a human element that I cannot ignore. I want you to father a child with me, not to maintain an illusion of peace, but to secure the future of the Zelneri Empire." The words hit him like a punch. He took a step back, the weight of her proposal sinking in. "I'm not sure I understand you," he said, his voice steady despite the storm building inside him. "You're asking me to, what? Bare your hair?" The Queen's eyes met his, a flicker of something unreadable in them. "Not just bare. Create." Superman clenched his jaw. He wasn't naive. He knew what she was implying, what this could mean for both races. But the weight of it, the absurdity, it was almost too much to grasp. "I've been with humans my whole life," he said slowly. "We have our flaws, but we are not pawns in someone else's game. If you think you can use me to control your empire—" Varexa raised her hand, cutting him off. "You misunderstand, Captain. This is not about control. It is about evolution. And I believe you are a part of it." There it was. The truth, veiled in the glint of ambition and the weight of ancient history. "Take some time to think about it," she said. "You will find that not all of us are interested in power alone. Some of us seek something far greater." And as she turned away, Superman stood there, feeling smaller than he ever had before. Superman stood in the silence of the chamber, the echoes of the Queen's words still hanging in the air like the stifling weight of an impending storm. His mind raced, fighting to wrap around the implications of what Varexa had asked. "Create in hair." The words played over and over in his mind, each repetition making his skin crawl. He wasn't sure how long he stood there before he turned and left the chamber, his steps purposeful yet heavy. The hallway outside was eerily quiet, the only sound his boots clicking against the polished stone floors. The palace was a maze of alien geometry, smooth, flowing curves that seemed to pulse with the life of the planet itself. The whole place felt alive, like the walls and floors could watch him, read his every movement. Superman knew this wasn't just about peace. This wasn't some political maneuver. Varexa had said it herself. She sought evolution. She sought change, and he was being pulled into it whether he wanted to be or not. He stopped in front of a massive window, the vast expanse of the Zelneri capital sprawling below. Twin suns were beginning to set, casting a golden glow across the city, the spires of the palace reflecting light in every direction. It was beautiful, too beautiful, but something about it felt wrong, out of place. "Captain." The voice broke through his thoughts like a blade through glass. He turned, his hand instinctively reaching for the sidearm he no longer wore. Standing in the doorway was a figure in dark armor, their face obscured by a helmet, only their glowing eyes visible through the visor. "Who are you?" Superman's voice was cold, a warning. There was something in the air, something dangerous. The figure didn't move, didn't speak at first. But then, In a low, guttural voice, the figure said, "A friend. For now." Superman narrowed his eyes, his stance shifting to a more defensive posture. "I don't know any friends here. Speak quickly, or I'll assume you're a threat." The figure hesitated, then took a step forward, lowering the helmet. The face that emerged was both alien and familiar: crystalline skin, dark purple eyes, and an air of quiet power. It was another Zelneri, but this one was different. There was a certain hardness about them, a sharp edge beneath their calm exterior. "You don't belong here," the Zelneri said, his voice now softer, almost sympathetic. "The Queen is playing a dangerous game, and you're a pawn in it." Superman clenched his jaw, eyes flickering with suspicion. "I'm no one's pawn. What do you want?" The Zelneri stepped closer, his eyes scanning the corridor. "There are factions within the Zelneri Empire who do not agree with the Queen's vision. There are those who want your child, and there are those who would use your involvement to escalate a war." Superman's pulse quickened. "I'm not here to start a war. I'm here to end one." The alien gave a soft, almost imperceptible nod. "Then you must understand the danger you're in. If you're not careful, the Queen's plans will drag Earth into a conflict we are not prepared for." "Why are you telling me this?" Superman asked, his voice steady, but his mind racing. The Zelneri stepped back, folding his arms. "Because, Captain, the Queen's empire is fragile. Even the slightest shift can fracture it. And you are the catalyst." Superman's stomach tightened. "And what do you expect me to do about it?" The Zelneri smiled, the expression chilling. "The question is not what you will do. It's what you can stop." Before Superman could respond, the figure turned and melted back into the shadows, leaving Superman standing alone in the hallway. The silence pressed in again, but this time, it wasn't peaceful. It was a warning. Superman stared out the window once more. The sun was now dipping below the horizon, and with it, a sense of finality settled into his bones. The Queen had made her move, and now the game had changed. He wasn't just a soldier or a diplomat anymore. He was caught in a war he hadn't started, surrounded by enemies he didn't fully understand. He needed answers, and fast. The fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy rested on his next move. The air on the Zelneri flagship was thick with tension. Superman stood at the center of the command deck, his jaw clenched as he watched the holographic map of the galaxy unfold before him. Zelneri space sprawled across the projection, vast and unknown, like a web that could entrap anyone foolish enough to tread its threads. Every move he made now would have ripples, waves that could break worlds. He had received no direct orders, no guidance from Earth Command, only silence. Silence, and the growing pressure of Varex's words echoing in his head. Create a legacy. Secure the future. He wasn't here to be a tool in someone's game. He had come to stop a war. But as the Zelneri ship glided closer to the royal palace, the realization hit him. He wasn't just a piece on a board anymore. He was part of the game, whether he wanted to be or not. Captain Drake. Superman's muscles tensed at the voice. He turned to find the same Zelneri soldier, the one who had warned him in the palace hallway. Emerging from the shadows, his dark armor gleamed under the cold light of the command deck, and his eyes, glowing faintly with an unnatural light, were locked on Superman's every movement. "You again," Superman said, his voice low, controlled. "What do you want?" The Zelneri stepped forward, his posture stiff but purposeful. "I need to show you something. Something the Queen has kept hidden." Superman felt the weight of the words. Every instinct told him this was another trap, another play in the tangled web of Zelneri politics. But something about the soldier's expression, something in the way his eyes flickered, told him there was truth behind the mystery. "Follow me," the soldier said simply, turning on his heel and walking briskly down the corridor. Minutes later, they arrived at a hidden chamber within the ship, a small room filled with technology far beyond anything Superman had ever seen. Panels of smooth metal shimmered with soft, pulsing lights, and strange, alien symbols adorned the walls. In the center of the room stood a large containment unit, its surface transparent but frosted over, like a window to another world. Superman stepped closer, his heart beginning to beat a little faster. Inside the containment unit, a figure floated in suspended animation, an exact replica of the Queen. Clone V, or perhaps another one of her kind. But something was different. The clone's skin seemed paler, the glow in her eyes flickering weakly. She was no longer the proud, confident woman he had met, but something else, something dying. "This is the real reason Varexa wants you," the soldier said quietly. "Clone V was never meant to be the vessel of your child. The Queen is using you to create a new bloodline, one that can give her true immortality." Superman's heart sank. "What are you talking about?" The Zelneri soldier's eyes glinted with a cold intensity. "The Queen's line is failing. The Zelneri have evolved too far, and their biology is becoming unstable. This clone is proof of that. But a child born of both your genetics and hers could restore her line. Your union could heal the Empire, or destroy it." Superman's mind raced. The Queen had lied to him. She had used him, not just to secure an heir, but to save herself. She needed him to create a child capable of keeping her species from dying out. And the moment he agreed, the consequences would be far greater than he had imagined. "And if I refuse?" Superman asked, his voice hardening. The soldier's expression darkened. "Then the Queen will make sure you are never seen again. And her empire will fall. War will come, and Earth will be caught in the middle." Superman's fists clenched at his sides. The weight of it all, the responsibility, the betrayal, the impossible choice, nearly crushed him. "Thank you for the warning," he said, turning toward the door. The Zelneri soldier bowed his head slightly. "The choice is yours, Captain. But remember, there are always consequences." Superman stepped out of the room, the door hissing shut behind him. His mind was a storm of thoughts, but one thing was clear: he had no time to waste. The fate of Earth, the fate of the galaxy, and the fate of the Zelneri Empire all rested in his hands. But for the first time since he arrived, he wasn't sure what the right move was. The night was quieter than it had ever been aboard the Zelneri flagship. Superman stood at the edge of a balcony, staring out at the vastness of space, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts he could barely contain. The stars glittered like shards of glass, distant and cold, almost as cold as the reality that now surrounded him. The truth had been revealed. The Queen, Varexa, had not just manipulated him for political gain. She had manipulated him for survival. His gaze lingered on the endless expanse of space. Earth, his home, was a pale blue dot far away, and yet it felt closer than ever. He had been part of a countless number of missions, fought against enemies from every corner of the universe, but none of it had prepared him for this, being used as a tool to save an empire on the verge of collapse. An empire whose leader would stop at nothing to secure her future, no matter the cost to those around her. "Captain." The voice broke through his thoughts, and he turned to find Commander Ashera standing a few feet away, her expression unreadable. She had been with him through thick and thin, a trusted ally during the countless missions and diplomatic crises that had come their way. But even she couldn't see what lay beneath the surface. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. Superman sighed, his shoulders slumping for just a moment. He had been holding it together, but now, in the quiet of the night, the weight of it all pressed down on him. "I don't know what's right anymore. Ashera, I came here to stop a war, not to get caught in the middle of one. And now I'm the center of it." Ashera's eyes softened, but her tone remained firm. "You're not alone in this, Captain. You never have been." Superman nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. He thought about Earth, his home, his people. He had spent his life protecting them, fighting for them. But the consequences of his actions here, on this alien world, would reach across the galaxy. If he aligned himself with the Queen, it would mean more than just securing the survival of the Zelneri. It would mean a shift in the balance of power. Earth, the Zelneri, and countless other worlds would be caught in the middle of a war that had only just begun. "Do you know what Virexa really wants?" he asked quietly, though he already knew the answer. Ashera crossed her arms, her gaze hardening. She wants more than an heir. She wants to create a bloodline capable of uniting the galaxy under Zelneri rule, and she'll do whatever it takes to make it happen. Superman clenched his fists. But she doesn't care who gets hurt in the process. She'll sacrifice anything, and anyone, for power. Ashera was silent for a moment, then stepped closer. "You have a choice, Captain. A difficult one. You can stand by the Queen's side and help her secure a new order, or you can fight her and risk throwing the entire galaxy into chaos. Either way, this will change everything." He looked back out at the stars, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Every instinct told him to fight, to protect the innocent, to resist the manipulation. But there was no denying the truth. If he opposed the Queen, the galaxy would burn. "I don't know if I can do this, Ashera," Superman said, his voice low. "I don't know if I can make the right choice." Ashera placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice steady. "You've always made the right choice. You just have to believe in it." The words hung in the air like a lifeline, but Superman wasn't sure if he could reach for it. His path forward was uncertain, and every decision he made now would lead to consequences he couldn't fully predict. With a final glance at the stars, Superman turned to Ashera. "Prepare the crew. We leave at dawn. We'll face whatever comes next, together." Ashera nodded, her gaze unwavering. "Always, Captain." As she walked away, Superman stood alone again, the weight of the universe pressing down on him. The future was uncertain, the stakes higher than ever. But one thing was clear: whatever path he chose, he would have to walk it with strength, and the cost of his choice would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. The ship shook, its frame groaning as if the very stars themselves were pressing down upon it. Superman's eyes snapped open. His senses, honed over years of vigilance, immediately registered the change. A sudden shift in the atmosphere, thick with tension. Something was happening. The command deck was a flurry of activity when Superman stormed in. Officers rushed from console to console, their movements frantic as alarms blared across the ship. Red lights cut through the darkness, casting eerie shadows across the metallic walls. "Report." Superman's voice was sharp, his tone demanding, as he approached the tactical officer who was frantically inputting commands. "Captain." The officer looked up, panic in their eyes. "We're under attack. A Zelneri warship has just entered the system. It's blocking all escape routes." Superman's heart skipped a beat. It was happening. The rebellion he had sensed was no longer just a whisper on the wind. It had come to a head. The factions within the Zelneri Empire were making their move. There was no more diplomacy, no more bargaining. The war that he had feared was now in full force. He didn't hesitate. "Prepare the shields. Get us to full speed. We need to get out of here, now." The crew scrambled into action, but as the ship shuddered beneath them, the sheer power of the enemy fleet made their efforts feel futile. Superman's instincts flared. There was something bigger going on here than just an attack. Whoever was in charge of the opposing ship had planned this, coordinated it with deadly precision. The view from the observation window confirmed his worst fears. The enemy ships were closing in, their sleek, dark shapes blocking out the stars. They moved with deadly intent, cutting through the darkness like predators circling their prey. "Shields are holding at 50%, came the report, but the voice was strained. "Incoming fire in 5 seconds. Superman's mind raced. He knew he couldn't just sit back and let the crew fight this battle. The stakes were too high. He had to act, and he had to do it fast. With a single determined motion, Superman surged forward, his body a blur of motion as he shot through the corridors of the ship. He needed to reach the hangar. The ship's only chance for survival lay in its fighters. If he could just take down the warship's leader, he might be able to bring the rebellion to its knees. He was done waiting for answers. Now, it was time for action. The door to the hangar slid open with a hiss, revealing a squadron of Zelneri fighters lined up, their sleek forms ready for battle. The crew had already been scrambling to prepare them for takeoff. Without a word, Superman jumped into the nearest fighter, his movements fluid and precise as he strapped himself in. The engine roared to life, and within moments, he was hurtling into space. The fighter was a smooth extension of his will. He maneuvered it with ease, dodging incoming fire as he cut through the enemy ranks. It wasn't just about skill. It was about speed, instinct, and the clarity that came from knowing the stakes. His heart pounded as he weaved through the oncoming blasts, every move calculated, every decision weighing heavily on him. Then, ahead, a massive flagship loomed. It was unmistakable, the source of the attack. It was a ship of war, built for conquest, its hull glistening with weaponry. Superman gritted his teeth. The time for hesitation was over. With a burst of speed, he shot toward the flagship, his fighter screaming through space. He was the only one who could stop this. He had the power, the knowledge, and the heart to finish this. But one thing was certain. If he failed, it would not just be the end of the ship. It would be the beginning of a war that would burn through the galaxy. The flagship's turrets locked onto him, their weapons charging with deadly force. Superman swerved, using his speed to outmaneuver the incoming blasts. The world around him exploded with the power of the enemy's fire, but he pushed forward, unwavering. He was almost there. He could feel the pull of the galaxy in his chest, the weight of everything resting on this moment. The fate of the Zelneri Empire, his people, and the future of his home planet, all of it hung on this confrontation. With one final surge of energy, Superman propelled his fighter into the heart of the flagship's defensive grid. The explosion that followed lit up the vastness of space, the brilliance of it flashing like a star igniting. Superman was too far in now to turn back. The first strike had been made.